Sarah Chen walked through the long metal hallway of Nexus Station. Her heart beat fast as she looked at the alien writing on the walls. Today was the most important day in human history. Earth was about to join the Galactic Council for the first time. Behind her walked 6 other humans. Dr. Elena Vasquez carried her medical scanner. Captain James Wright kept his hand near his weapon. The others were scientists and diplomats from different countries on Earth. They all wore the same blue uniforms with the Earth symbol on their chest. "Remember," Sarah said quietly, "we are here to make friends. No sudden movements. No loud voices. We represent all of humanity today." The doors ahead of them opened with a soft hiss. Sarah stepped into the biggest room she had ever seen. The ceiling was so high she could not see the top. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows that went up like a giant bowl. Some aliens were tall and thin. Others were short and round. Some had fur. Others had scales that shone like metal. Sarah tried not to stare, but it was hard. She had studied pictures of these aliens for months, but seeing them in person was different. Much different. The human group walked to the center of the room. A small platform waited for them there. As they climbed onto it, Sarah felt thousands of alien eyes watching them. But something was wrong. She could feel it in her stomach. Most of the aliens looked at them with simple curiosity. The plant-eating species tilted their heads and whispered to each other. The fish-like aliens from the water worlds blinked their large eyes slowly. These reactions made sense to Sarah, but the predators were different. The Vorthak sat in the front rows. They looked like giant wolves that walked on 2 legs. Their yellow eyes never moved away from the humans. Not even once. Sarah could see their nostrils moving as they smelled the air. Higher up sat the Shard Queens. These aliens looked like they were made of living crystal. They usually stayed very still during meetings. But today they leaned forward. Their crystal faces reflected light as they watched every human movement. In the back, floating in tanks of dark water, were the Leviathans. These massive creatures lived in the deep space between stars. They almost never came to council meetings, but 3 of them were here today. Their tentacles pressed against the glass as they stared down at the humans. "Welcome," said a voice that filled the room. Sarah looked up to see the council speaker. It was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "We greet the humans of Earth. You have traveled far to be here." Sarah stepped forward. She had practiced this speech 100 times. "Thank you, honored speaker. Humanity is grateful for this chance to join the galactic community. We come in peace. We want to learn from all of you and share what we know." The speaker nodded. The council will now hear questions for the new species. Immediately, dozens of aliens began to speak at once. The speaker raised one hand for quiet. "The Kalari delegation may speak first." A small, furry alien stood up. "What do humans eat?" it asked in a high voice. "We eat both plants and meat," Sarah answered. "We grow crops and raise animals for food." More questions came quickly. Where was Earth located? How many humans were there? What was their technology like? Sarah answered each question carefully. The other humans helped when she needed them to, but the predator species did not ask questions. They just watched, and their watching made Sarah feel like prey. 30 minutes passed. The questions were ending. Sarah began to relax. Maybe the strange feeling in her stomach was just nerves. Then one of the Vorthak stood up. The room became completely silent. Even the speaker looked surprised. The Vorthak were known for following rules exactly. They never spoke without permission. The alien was huge, at least 8 feet tall, with gray fur and muscles that showed through its formal robes. It had scars on its face and arms. Sarah could see its sharp teeth when it breathed. It walked down from its seat. Each step made a loud sound on the metal floor. Other aliens moved out of its way. The creature walked straight toward the human platform. Captain Wright moved his hand toward his weapon. Sarah held up her hand to stop him. She could feel her heart beating so fast it hurt. The Vorthak stopped 3 feet from Sarah. It looked down at her with those yellow eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Sarah wanted to look away, but something told her that would be a mistake. The alien's nostrils flared again. It tilted its head slightly to one side. Then it spoke in a deep voice that everyone in the room could hear. "We know what you are." The words hit Sarah like a punch to the chest. Around the room, other predator species began to make sounds. The Shard Queens clicked their crystal fingers together. The Leviathans moved in their tanks. Even species that Sarah had never seen before were reacting. "I'm sorry," Sarah said carefully. I don't understand what you mean. The Vorthak leaned closer. Sarah could smell its breath. It smelled like meat and blood. Your eyes, it said. We see it in your eyes. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. See what? She asked. The alien looked at her, then at each of the other humans. Its eyes stopped on Captain Wright the longest. Wright stared back without blinking. The hunt, the Vorthak said finally. You are hunters. Like us, but different. Very different. Around the room, the plant-eating aliens were whispering loudly. Some looked scared. Others looked confused. But every predator in the room was perfectly still and quiet. The speaker finally found his voice. Honored Vorthak, please return to your seat. This is not the proper way to conduct first contact. The alien ignored the speaker. It kept looking at Sarah. How long? It asked. How long what? Sarah replied. How long do you hunt your prey? Sarah felt her mouth go dry. This was not a question she had prepared for. We don't hunt anymore. Not really. We buy our food or grow it. The Vorthak made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not a happy sound. Your species hunts, it said. Always hunting. We can smell it on you. In your sweat. In your breath. It never stops. One of the Shard Queens spoke from across the room. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. They do not know, it said. The young species does not know what it is. More predators began to speak. Not to the humans, but to each other. They used words that the translation machines could not handle. But Sarah could tell they were excited about something. Or worried. Maybe both. The Vorthak finally stepped back. You will learn, it told Sarah. Soon you will understand. And when you do, you will remember this day. It turned and walked back to its seat. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Sarah looked at her team. They all looked as confused as she felt. The speaker cleared his throat. Well, that wasn't unusual. Are there any other questions for the human delegation? No one else spoke. Then this session is closed. The humans will be given quarters on Nexus Station, while the Council considers their application for membership. As the aliens began to leave, Sarah noticed something else strange. The predator species left last, and as they walked past the human platform, each one looked directly at her face. Not curious looks, not friendly looks. They looked at her the way she had seen lions look at gazelles on nature documentaries back on Earth, like they recognized something that scared them. 3 months had passed since the strange meeting at Nexus Station. Sarah Chen was back on Earth, reading reports that made no sense. Human ships had spread across 12 different star systems. Trade deals were being made. Colonies were being built. Everything should have been going perfectly, but the reports from the new colonies were all wrong. Captain Marcus Webb stood in Sarah's office in Geneva. He had flown straight from his ship to bring her the latest news. His uniform was wrinkled and he looked tired. Tell me about Kepler 442b again, Sarah said, pouring coffee for both of them. Marcus sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. The colonists there call them stalkers. Big cats about the size of tigers but with longer legs. They've been living on that planet for millions of years. And they hunt everything on the planet. Everything except humans. Marcus took a long drink of coffee. At first, the colonists thought they were lucky. No predator attacks. No lost livestock. But then they started watching the stalkers more carefully. Sarah looked at the photos on her computer screen. The stalkers were beautiful animals. Their fur was golden with black stripes. Their eyes were bright green. They looked powerful and dangerous. What did the colonists see? She asked. The stalkers follow them, not to attack, just to watch. Groups of colonists will be working in the fields and look up to see 6 or 7 stalkers sitting on the hills around them. Just watching. For hours, Sarah frowned. Maybe they're curious about the new species. That's what we thought too. Until the incident with Tommy Morrison. Sarah had read about Tommy Morrison. He was 8 years old and had wandered away from the main colony settlement. His parents found him 2 miles away, sitting next to a stream. A full-grown male stalker had been sitting beside him the whole time. The stalker didn't hurt him. Marcus continued. When the rescue team arrived, the animal just looked at them for a moment and then walked away. Tommy said it had been protecting him from the smaller predators in the area. Protecting him? 2 dead scavengers were found nearby. The stalker had killed them but hadn't eaten them. It left them there and went back to sitting with Tommy. Sarah pulled up another report on her screen. And this is happening on other worlds too? Marcus nodded. Ross 128b has those wolf-like creatures called howlers. They were attacking the mining operation there for weeks, killed 3 alien workers. But when the human crew arrived, the attack stopped completely. Stopped, more than stopped. The pack leader approached the human foreman, looked him right in the eyes, and then led the whole pack away from the mining site. They haven't been back since. Sarah scrolled through more reports. The same pattern appeared on world after world. Predators that attacked other species but avoided humans. Or worse, predators that seemed to recognize humans as something special. What about Tau Ceti Prime? She asked. Marcus's face went dark. That's why I'm here. We need to go there now. 2 days later, Sarah and Marcus were on board the exploration ship Prometheus. The journey to Tau Ceti Prime took 6 days through hyperspace. Sarah spent the time reading everything she could about the planet. Tau Ceti Prime was a forest world. Most of the planet was covered in thick woods with trees that grew 300 feet tall. The local predators were called forest runners. They looked like a mix between wolves and deer, with long legs that let them run through the trees at incredible speeds. The forest runners had been a problem for the mixed species research station on the planet. They hunted in packs of 20 or 30 animals. They were smart enough to use tools and plan complex attacks. In the past year, they had killed dozens of researchers from different alien species, but they had never attacked a human. The Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace near Tau Ceti Prime. Sarah looked out the window at the green and brown planet below. It looked peaceful from space. The research station is sending us coordinates, Marcus said from the pilot's seat. We'll land near the main building. The ship descended through thick clouds. As they got closer to the surface, Sarah could see the forest stretching in all directions. The trees were so thick that she couldn't see the ground between them. The research station was a cluster of white buildings in a cleared area about the size of a football field. As the Prometheus landed, Sarah could see alien scientists running toward them from the buildings. Dr. Kethvar was the station leader. He was one of the methane breathers, with gray skin and 4 eyes. He spoke through a translator box that made his voice sound like static. "Thank you for coming," he said as Sarah and Marcus walked down the ship's ramp. "We are desperate for help." "Tell us about the forest runner attacks," Sarah said. Dr. Kethvar led them toward the main building. "They come at night. Sometimes during the day, they are smart. They know how to cut our power lines. They know how to break our fences. 6 researchers have died in the past month, but no humans have been stationed here. No humans until now. We requested human help because we heard about the incidents on other worlds. We hoped that maybe your species could communicate with them somehow." They reached the main building. It was surrounded by a tall electric fence. Sarah could see scorch marks on the walls where energy weapons had been fired. "When was the last attack?" Marcus asked. 2 nights ago. They killed Dr. Rillock while he was taking readings near the forest edge. We found pieces of his equipment scattered over half a mile." Sarah looked toward the tree line. The forest was only 100 yards away from the fence. It looked dark and quiet. "Too quiet. I want to go into the forest," she said. Dr. Kethvar's 4 eyes went wide. "That would be suicide. The forest runners control everything past the tree line." "Not everything," Marcus said quietly. Sarah looked at him. "What do you mean?" Marcus pointed toward the forest. "Look at the trees near the fence." Sarah looked more carefully. At first she didn't see anything unusual. Then she noticed movement in the shadows between the trees. It was hard to see, but something was definitely there. "How long have they been watching us?" she asked Dr. Kethvar. The alien scientist looked toward the forest and made a sound like a gasp. "Since your ship landed. But they never come this close during the day, never." Sarah could see them more clearly now. Forest runners, at least 20 of them standing just inside the tree line. They were beautiful animals with reddish-brown fur and intelligent eyes. They stood perfectly still, watching the humans. "I'm going over there," Sarah said. "Sarah, no." Marcus grabbed her arm. "We don't know what they want." "Yes, we do." Sarah pulled free. "They want to see us. Up close." She walked toward the fence. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Kethvar speaking rapidly into his radio, probably calling for security. But Sarah didn't stop. The forest runners watched her approach. They didn't move away or get ready to attack. They just watched. Sarah reached the fence and stopped. The nearest forest runner was only 20 feet away on the other side. It was a large male with scars on its face and a black stripe down its back. It looked like the pack leader. For a long moment they stared at each other. Sarah could see intelligence in the animal's eyes. Not just animal cunning, but real intelligence. The forest runner tilted its head slightly. Then it took a step toward the fence. Sarah heard Marcus running up behind her. "Sarah, get away from there." But the forest runner didn't attack. Instead, it sat down, like a dog sitting for its master. The other forest runners behind it did the same thing. The pack leader looked directly into Sarah's eyes. She felt the same feeling she had experienced on Nexus Station, like the animal was recognizing something in her that she didn't understand herself. Then the forest runner stood up, turned around, and walked back into the forest. The rest of the pack followed. In seconds, they had disappeared completely. "What just happened?" Dr. Kethvar asked in a shaky voice. Sarah stared at the empty forest. "I have no idea." But deep down, she was starting to suspect that the Vorthak had been right. Humans were hunters, and somehow every predator in the galaxy could see it in their eyes. The message from the Galactic Council arrived while Sarah Chen was still thinking about the forest runners. It was marked as urgent and came directly from the council speaker himself. Sarah read it 3 times before she understood what it was asking. The water world of Aquatica was in crisis. The native species, called reef runners, had been attacking council research stations for 2 months. 3 stations had been completely destroyed. Dozens of researchers from different alien species had been killed or wounded. But the human research station on Aquatica had never been touched. The council wanted humans to go to Aquatica and try to make peace with the reef runners. Sarah looked at the star charts. Aquatica was 8 days away by fast ship. The planet was almost completely covered by ocean, with only a few small islands. "We're going," Sarah told Marcus as she packed her equipment. "This might be our chance to finally understand what's happening." The journey to Aquatica gave Sarah time to study everything the council knew about reef runners. They were semi-aquatic, creatures that looked like a cross between dolphins and crocodiles. They were about 8 feet long with smooth gray skin and powerful tails. They could breathe both air and water. Most importantly, they were apex predators. They hunted everything in Aquatica's oceans, from tiny fish to massive sea creatures the size of whales. They were smart, fast, and extremely dangerous when threatened. The human research station on Aquatica was built on a small island in the planet's northern hemisphere. As the Prometheus approached the planet, Sarah could see endless blue water in every direction. The oceans looked peaceful from space. Dr. Maria Santos met them at the landing pad. She was the head of the human research team on Aquatica. She looked tired and worried. "Thank God you're here," she said, as Sarah and Marcus climbed out of their shuttle. "The council representatives arrived yesterday and they're talking about using military force against the reef runners." "Military force?" Sarah asked. "Against the entire species?" "They want to bomb the deep ocean trenches where the reef runners live. They think it's the only way to stop the attacks." Sarah looked around the research station. It was built on stilts over a shallow lagoon. The buildings were connected by walkways that extended out over the water. Everything looked normal and peaceful. "Have you had any contact with the reef runners?" she asked. Dr. Santos nodded. "That's the strange part. They come here every day, but they don't attack. They just swim around the station and watch us work." "Watch you work? Come on, I'll show you." Dr. Santos led them to a platform at the end of the longest walkway. Sarah looked down into the clear blue water below. At first she didn't see anything. Then shapes began to move in the deeper water beyond the platform. Reef runners. At least 30 of them swimming in slow circles around the station. Their gray bodies moved through the water like liquid metal. Sarah could see their intelligent eyes looking up at the humans on the platform. "They've been doing this since we arrived 6 months ago," Dr. Santos explained. "Sometimes they come closer to the surface, sometimes they stay deeper, but they're always there." "Do they ever try to communicate?" "Watch this." Dr. Santos knelt down at the edge of the platform and put her hand in the water. Immediately, one of the reef runners swam up toward the surface. It was a large female with distinctive markings on her back. She approached slowly until her head was just below Dr. Santos's hand. "I call her Marina," Dr. Santos said softly. "She seems to be their leader." Marina's head broke the surface of the water. She was beautiful in a dangerous way. with large dark eyes and rows of sharp teeth. She looked directly at Sarah with those eyes, and Sarah felt the same recognition she had experienced with every predator species she had met. Marina made a sound that was part whistle and part clicking. Other reef runners surfaced around the platform, adding their voices to hers. The sound was hauntingly beautiful. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked. "We don't know," Dr. Santos replied. "But they only do this when humans are present, never when other species visit." Sarah knelt down next to Dr. Santos. Marina swam closer until her head was only inches from Sarah's hand. The reef runner's eyes were incredibly intelligent. Sarah could see recognition there, and something else. Respect? Fear? "Marina," Sarah said softly, "we need to understand. Why are your people attacking the other stations?" Marina tilted her head, listening. Then she made a series of rapid clicks and whistles. The other reef runners responded with similar sounds. "She's trying to tell us something, Dr. Santos said. "But we can't understand their language." Sarah had an idea. "Dr. Santos, do you have any telepathic communication equipment?" "Basic stuff. Why?" "Some predator species have limited telepathic abilities. Maybe the reef runners do too." An hour later, Sarah was back on the platform wearing a neural interface headband. The device could pick up basic thoughts and emotions from telepathic species. It wasn't perfect, but it might help. Marina was still in the water below the platform. When she saw Sarah return, she swam closer to the surface. Sarah turned on the neural interface and knelt down again. "Marina, can you hear my thoughts?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sarah felt something touch the edge of her mind. It was like a gentle wave washing over her thoughts. Images began to flow through her head. She saw the ocean as Marina saw it. Deep, dark waters filled with life. Reef runners swimming in perfect formation through underwater canyons. Schools of fish moving like silver clouds through the water. Then the images changed. She saw the council research stations being built. Alien species in strange diving suits entering the water. The aliens moved wrong, swam wrong, thought wrong. They didn't belong in the ocean. But then she saw something that made her gasp. Human divers entering the water near the human research station. But these humans moved differently. They swam with purpose and patience. They understood the water in a way the other aliens didn't. Marina sent more images. Humans on Earth, thousands of years ago. Humans following herds of animals across vast distances. Never stopping, never giving up. Always moving forward with steady determination. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. The images kept coming. Reef runners following massive sea creatures across the ocean depths, swimming for days or weeks without stopping, waiting for their prey to tire before making the final attack. Sarah understood. The reef runners were persistence hunters, just like humans. They could hunt their prey for incredible distances through the ocean depths, and somehow they recognized that humans were persistence hunters too. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "What are you seeing?" Sarah pulled off the neural interface. Her hands were shaking. "They know what we are. They've always known." "What do you mean?" "Marina, your people hunt by following prey for long distances, don't you? You never give up once you start hunting." Marina clicked and whistled. Even without the neural interface, Sarah could tell the answer was yes. "And you recognize that humans do the same thing, not in water, but on land. We follow our prey until it can't run anymore." More clicking and whistling. Marina's eyes were bright with excitement. "But the other alien species don't hunt that way," Sarah continued. "They're ambush predators or pack hunters, or they rely on speed and strength. They don't understand persistence hunting." Marina's head bobbed up and down in what was clearly agreement. Dr. Santos stared at Sarah. "Are you saying that the reef runners see humans as fellow persistence hunters?" "More than that." Sarah looked down at Marina. "The attacks on the council stations aren't random violence. They're territorial disputes. The reef runners think the other alien species are invading their hunting grounds. But they don't attack our station because they recognize us as fellow hunters?" "Fellow apex predators," Sarah corrected. They respect our right to be here because they know we earned it the same way they did, through millions of years of never giving up. Marina made a long musical sound. Other reef runners throughout the lagoon answered her call. Soon the entire area was filled with their songs. "She's calling the matriarch," Dr. Santos said, "the leader of all the reef runners on this planet." The water in the deeper part of the lagoon began to move. Something large was rising from the depths. Sarah watched in amazement as the biggest reef runner she had ever seen broke the surface. The matriarch was ancient and massive. Scars covered her body from countless battles. Her eyes held the wisdom of centuries. She looked directly at Sarah and spoke in a voice that Sarah could hear without any translation equipment. "Welcome, sister hunters," the matriarch said. "We have been waiting for you to arrive." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. For the first time since humans had entered the galaxy, they weren't strangers looking for acceptance. They were family coming home. "We need to stop the council from attacking your people," Sarah said. The matriarch smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "There will be no attack. You will speak for us as one predator speaks for another. The weak ones will listen to you because they fear what they see in your eyes." "What do they see?" "The same thing we see. The hunt that never ends. The pursuit that cannot be stopped." The matriarch's voice was full of respect. "You are the children of the eternal chase just as we are, and now the galaxy will learn what that means." Back on Nexus Station, Sarah Chen sat in the council's main library reading files that most species were never allowed to see. The Reef Runner matriarch had given her access codes to the predator species shared database. What she found there changed everything she thought she knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. The database was called The Memory of the Hunt. It contained genetic memories, cultural stories, and biological data from every predator species in known space. And buried deep in those files were stories about persistence hunters that went back millions of years. Marcus sat beside her, reading over her shoulder. "This can't be right," he said, pointing at one of the entries. "This story is from the Vorthak homeworld, but it talks about humans." "How is that possible?" Sarah scrolled through more files. The pattern was the same everywhere. Species that had never met humans before had stories about the ones who never stop coming. The details were different in each culture, but the core story was always the same. "Look at this," Sarah said, opening a file from the Crystalline Shard Queens. They call it The Legend of the Endless Pursuit. It says that somewhere in the galaxy lives a species that hunts not with claws or teeth or speed, but with something they call the patience of stones and the determination of stars. Marcus frowned. "But how could they know about human hunting methods before they met us? That's what I'm trying to figure out." Sarah opened another file. The Leviathans have a similar story. They call it The Tale of Those Who Walk Between Worlds. It describes hunters who can cross vast distances without stopping, following their prey from one world to another. The more files Sarah read, the more she understood. These weren't just random stories. They were genetic memories passed down through evolution itself. Every predator species in the galaxy had evolved their own hunting methods over millions of years. But deep in their genetic code was an awareness of the ultimate hunting technique, persistence hunting. Most species had tried it at some point in their evolution. The files showed examples from dozens of worlds, but none had mastered it completely. They all eventually evolved different strategies: ambush hunting, pack tactics, speed, stealth, or overwhelming force except for humans. "Dr. Vasquez needs to see this," Sarah said, sending a message to their xenobiologist back on Earth. 3 days later, Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived on Nexus Station with a team of evolutionary biologists. They set up equipment in the library and began analyzing the predator database alongside human evolutionary data. "This is incredible," Dr. Vasquez said after her first day of research. "The genetic memories in these files match perfectly with what we know about early human development." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. Dr. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display showing human evolution. "Look at this timeline. 2 million years ago, early humans in Africa began developing persistence hunting. They would chase animals like antelope for hours or even days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion." "I know about persistence hunting," Marcus said, "but lots of Earth animals do that." "No, they don't." Dr. Vasquez shook her head. "A few species do short-distance persistence hunting, Wolves will chase prey for a few miles. Some birds will follow migrating animals. But humans developed something completely different. She changed the display to show ancient hunting routes across Africa. Humans could track a single animal for 50 or 100 miles. They could run in the heat of the day when other predators couldn't. They could follow tracks that were days old. They never gave up. Sarah stared at the display. And this made us different from other Earth predators? Completely different. Most predators on Earth are either ambush hunters or sprint hunters. Lions lie in wait and then attack quickly. Cheetahs run incredibly fast for short distances. Even wolves usually catch their prey within a few miles. But humans just kept going. For as long as it took. There are stories of human hunters following a single animal for a week or more. The animal would run until it was exhausted, then rest. When it started moving again, the humans would still be there following patiently behind. Dr. Vasquez opened another file from the predator database. And according to these genetic memories, that kind of hunting is incredibly rare in the galaxy. Most predator species evolved on worlds where persistence hunting wasn't possible or necessary. Marcus looked confused. Why wasn't it possible? Different environments create different evolutionary pressures, Dr. Vasquez explained. The Vorthak evolved on a world with dense forests. Their prey could hide easily, so ambush hunting worked better than persistence hunting. The Shard Queens evolved on a crystal world where prey was scattered and hard to find. Pack hunting was more efficient. What about the Reef Runners? Sarah asked. They're persistence hunters, too. They're the closest thing to humans in the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But even they're different. Reef runners hunt in the ocean where prey can't hide as easily. Humans had to develop persistence hunting on land, which is much harder. Sarah began to understand. So when other predator species look at humans, they see something that they recognize from their own evolution but never fully developed. Exactly. It's like seeing the ultimate version of something they once tried to become. Dr. Vasquez pulled up more data from the predator files. Look at this entry from a species called the Night Stalkers. They went extinct 50,000 years ago, but their genetic memories are preserved in the database. The file showed creatures that looked like giant cats with 6 legs. According to the data, they had tried to develop persistence hunting on their homeworld, but their planet had extreme weather changes that made long hunts impossible. They could only hunt for a few hours at a time before environmental conditions forced them to stop. Dr. Vasquez read. The genetic memory says they always dreamed of being able to hunt without stopping, to follow prey across any distance or terrain. And then humans show up, Marcus said slowly, and we actually do what they could only dream of. Not just the Night Stalkers. Every predator species in the galaxy has some genetic memory of trying to develop perfect persistence hunting. And every one of them failed for some reason. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. So when they look at us, they see the successful version of their own evolutionary dreams, Dr. Vasquez finished. No wonder they recognize something in human eyes. We represent the perfection of something they all attempted but couldn't achieve. The implications of this discovery spread quickly through the galactic community. Within days, predator species from across the galaxy began sending messages to human colonies. Not threats or challenges, but requests for meetings. The Vorthak sent a formal invitation for human hunters to visit their homeworld and participate in their most sacred hunting rituals. The Shard Queens offered to share their advanced tracking technologies with human explorers. Even the mysterious Leviathans emerged from deep space to establish communication with human ships. But it was a message from an unknown species that really caught Sarah's attention. The message came from the galactic core, from a region of space that most species avoided. The sender identified themselves as the Archive Keepers, a species that collected and preserved the history of extinct civilizations. We have been watching the humans with great interest, the message said. You have achieved something that has only been attempted by 17 species in galactic history. Of those 17 attempts to master persistence hunting, 16 failed and the species went extinct. Sarah stared at the message. 16 species went extinct trying to become persistence hunters? Dr. Vasquez nodded grimly. Persistence hunting is incredibly dangerous to develop. It requires massive changes to physiology, psychology, and social structure. Most species that try it end up destroying themselves. How? Think about what persistence hunting requires. You need incredible endurance, but you also need the mental ability to focus on a single goal for days or weeks. You need social cooperation to share hunting duties, but you also need individual determination to never give up. And if you get that balance wrong, if you develop too much endurance without enough intelligence, you become obsessed with hunting and can't adapt to changing environments. If you develop too much focus without enough social cooperation, your species becomes too aggressive and destroys itself through constant warfare. Sarah looked back at the message from the archive keepers. But humans got it right, apparently. We're the only species in galactic history to successfully develop persistence hunting without going extinct. The message from the archive keepers continued. We would like to meet with human representatives to discuss your species' unique evolutionary achievement. We believe you may be the key to understanding something that has puzzled us for millions of years. What could they want? Marcus asked. Sarah had a feeling she already knew. They want to understand how we survived becoming persistence hunters when no one else could. And why is that important? Because, Sarah said, looking at the star charts showing the galactic core, something tells me we're going to need those hunting skills very soon. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Station. Emergency messages flooded the communication systems. Sarah read the first few lines and felt her blood turn cold. Something was moving in the galactic core. Something big. Something that the archive keeper's sensors couldn't identify. Something that was the emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was the largest in recorded history. Representatives from over 300 species crowded into the great chamber on Nexus Station. Sarah Chen stood with the human delegation, but for the first time since joining the council, they were not outsiders looking for acceptance. The predator species had requested that humans lead the response to whatever was coming from the galactic core. Council Speaker. Beltar stood at the center of the chamber. His forearms shook as he read the reports from the archive keepers. The entities emerging from the galactic core have been identified as devourers. They were last seen in this galaxy over 50 million years ago. Murmurs of fear rippled through the chamber. Even species that had never heard of devourers could tell from the predators' reactions that this was serious. What exactly are devourers? Asked Ambassador Krill of the Peaceful Traders Union. An ancient leviathan answered from her water tank. Her voice was like the sound of deep ocean currents. They feed on life energy itself. Not just individual creatures, but entire ecosystems. Whole planets become lifeless when they pass. How many are there? Sarah asked. The leviathan's tentacles pressed against her tank's glass. The archive keepers detect 17 distinct energy signatures. Each one is the size of a moon. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives began shouting in dozens of different languages. Some species were already talking about evacuation. Others demanded immediate military action. Silence. The voice belonged to the Vorthak delegation leader. His yellow eyes blazed as he looked around the chamber. Fear will not save us from this threat. Then what will? Squeaked a small herbivorous delegate. The Vorthak looked directly at Sarah. The hunt. What hunt? Ambassador Krill asked. These are energy beings the size of moons. How do you hunt something like that? The same way you hunt anything, Sarah said, understanding beginning to dawn on her. You follow it until it can't run anymore. The Vorthak bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. Tell them, human. Tell them what you know. Sarah stood up. Every eye in the chamber focused on her. 3 months ago, this would have terrified her. Now she felt calm and focused. Devourers are apex predators, she began. But they're not pack hunters or ambush hunters. They're feeding specialists. They consume life energy and then move on to find more food. So? Asked Ambassador Krill. So they have one major weakness. They can't stay in one place very long. Once they've drained a planet or system, they have to keep moving to find more energy sources. The Shard Queen representative clicked her crystal fingers together. You wish to turn them into prey. I wish to hunt them the way humans and reef runners and other persistence hunters have always hunted. We follow them. We never let them rest. We never let them feed properly. But they're larger than our ships, protested a military commander. How do we follow something that big? The Leviathan answered. We hunt as a pack. All predator species together. Humans provide strategy. We provide the tools. Sarah felt excitement building in her chest. It could work. Devourers are energy feeders, which means they need time to properly drain life from planets. If we keep harassing them, keep forcing them to move before they're finished feeding, they starve, the Vorthak finished, like any prey animal that is never allowed to eat in peace. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of Sarah's life. Ships from every predator species in the galaxy converged on the outer rim systems. Human strategic planning combined with alien technology to create something that had never existed before: a galactic hunting pack. The Vorthak provided their best tracking ships. These vessels could follow energy trails across multiple star systems. The Shard Queens contributed their hive mind communication networks, allowing perfect coordination across vast distances. The Leviathans emerged from deep space and massive bioships that could operate for months without resupply, and the humans provided something that no other species could: the absolute certainty that the hunt would continue no matter how long it took. Captain Marcus Webb commanded the human flagship Endurance. The ship was surrounded by a fleet of over 2,000 vessels from dozens of different predator species. It was the largest coordinated hunting expedition in galactic history. "Contact," reported the Vorthak sensor operator. "Devourer signatures detected in the Kepler system." On the main screen, the first Devourer appeared. It was a writhing mass of dark energy the size of Earth's moon. Tendrils of power reached out from its core, draining life from everything they touched. The planet below was already starting to turn gray as its ecosystem died. "All ships begin harassment pattern Alpha," Sarah commanded from the bridge of the Endurance. "Do not engage directly. We're not trying to kill it yet. We just want to make it uncomfortable." The hunting fleet spread out around the Devourer. Ships fired energy weapons that didn't really hurt the creature but disrupted its feeding process. Every time it tried to settle into a stable feeding pattern, another ship would buzz past and force it to react. The strategy worked. After 6 hours, the Devourer began to move away from the planet it was feeding on. It hadn't finished draining the world's life energy, which meant it was still hungry. "Target is moving toward the Vega system," reported the Vorthak tracker. "Estimated arrival in 18 hours. All ships pursue," Sarah ordered. "Maintain harassment distance. Don't let it rest." The chase began. For 3 months, the hunting fleet followed the 17 Devourers across dozens of star systems. Every time the creatures tried to feed, ships would appear to disrupt them. Every time they tried to rest, energy weapons would force them to keep moving. It was exhausting work. Ships had to be rotated constantly to keep crews fresh. Supply lines stretched across half the galaxy. Several times, individual Devourers tried to double back and attack the hunting fleet directly, but the predator species never gave up. And gradually the Devourers began to weaken. "Energy output from Target 7 is down 40%, reported Dr. Vasquez from the science station. "It's definitely starving." "Target 12 just collapsed into a lower energy state," added the Shard Queen communication officer. "It may be entering some kind of hibernation mode." Sarah watched the tactical display showing all 17 Devourers. They were scattered across a dozen systems now, each one being hunted by a different group of ships. The creatures that had once moved with purpose and power now drifted aimlessly through space, too weak to maintain their feeding behavior. "This is it," she said to Marcus. "They're vulnerable now." The final phase of the hunt began. Instead of just harassing the Devourers, the hunting fleet began to attack them directly. Ships that had been built for stealth and speed were replaced by heavy combat vessels. Energy weapons designed to disrupt became weapons designed to destroy. One by one, the weakened Devourers fell to concentrated fire from the hunting fleet. They had become so starved and exhausted that they could no longer defend themselves properly. Sarah watched the last Devourer die in the Beta Centauri system. After 4 months of continuous hunting, the threat to the galaxy was over. The victory celebration on Nexus Station lasted for 3 days. Representatives from every species in the galaxy came to honor the hunting fleet that had saved them all. But for Sarah, the most meaningful moment came in a private meeting with the predator species leaders. "You have taught us something important," the Vorthak delegation leader told her. "We thought we knew what hunting meant, but you showed us that true hunting is not about strength or speed or cleverness." "What is it about?" Sarah asked. "It is about never stopping, never giving up, following your prey to the ends of the galaxy if necessary." The Reef Runner matriarch, who had traveled all the way from Aquatica for the meeting, nodded her agreement. "You have shown us that persistence hunting is not just a way to catch food. It is a way to protect everything you care about. The galaxy owes humanity a debt," said the ancient Leviathan. "You have proven that intelligence and determination together can overcome any threat." Sarah looked around the room at the assembled predator leaders. A few months ago, these beings had been strangers who recognized something frightening in human eyes. Now they were allies who understood that what they had seen was not something to fear, but something to respect. "We're not the same as we were before this hunt," she said. "Humans, I mean. We know what we are now." "What are you?" asked the Vorthak. Sarah smiled. "We're the species that never stops hunting, and now the whole galaxy knows it." As the meeting ended and the various species prepared to return to their homeworlds, Sarah stood alone on the observation deck of Nexus Station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see ships from dozens of different worlds preparing to depart. But she knew they would meet again. The hunt for the Devourers had created something new in the galaxy, a pack that included every apex predator species known to exist. And at the center of that pack, accepted and respected by all, were the humans. The species that had spent millions of years perfecting the art of never giving up. The species that other predators could see in their eyes and finally understand the hunt was over, but the pack would endure forever. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.